So it should be Yodam at Bet, and we should be at 2 dots. It says Me'ilot, right?
Yes.
It looks like in my Gemara about 20 lines to the bottom. Okay. So the Mishnah on Yodam and Aleph enumerated all kinds of items which it felt the basis was somewhat minimalistic in the Torah. So it had to Nadar Parchim Ba'avir, Ilam HaMesnismechu, Hilchos Shabbos, Chagigos, Me'ilos, Harehim, Kahararim, Atloim B'Sara. Shabbos, Chagiga, and Me'ilah is like a mountain that's held on top of a thin piece of hair. Shei Mikra Muad V'Halachas Merubos. Okay, a lot of very small Torah and a lot of halachas. So we did Shabbos. We talked about the Shabbos being not all the laws of Shabbos, which there are many psukim, but the law about Malacha She'en Tzricha L'Gufa, or Mekalkel. And we talked about Chagiga. We said the issue was, where do you see the Korban Chagiga? How do you know that when it says Chagiga, it means the Korban Chagiga, not simply celebratory celebrations, right? And now we come to Me'ilah. Me'ilah is when you steal from Hashem or steal from the Beis Hamikdash, and you can never steal from God, so you don't call it Gzeila Gneva, you call it Me'ilah. Me'ilah means to use. So the Gemara asks the obvious question once again. Michtav Ksivin. There are psukim that talk about the laws of Me'ilah and how you have to bring a korban, you have to replenish the principal plus a chomesh and bring a korban. So what do you mean there are no psukim? So the Gemara says it deals with a very specific case about Me'ilah. Amar Rami bar Chama, lo nishvacha ela d'tnan. We need it for the following case as follows. It's a case of sending a shaliach. And the rules about Me'ilah, you'll see some of them are a little different than a shliach l'dvar aveira. Normally we have, if someone tells you to do an aveira,
right, so you do it.
Well, but if you do it, you can't say he sent me.
Right, because you should have done it.
Correct, because you and he, the sender and the sendee, are both obligated to follow the Almighty. But some of these laws are a little different as follows. Hashalech shasa shlichuso. If the messenger did his job, balabais mal. Okay, so the balabais, let's say the balabais says to Shlech, go steal this, take this money out of the Beis Hamikdash. Who took the money out of the Beis Hamikdash? The balabais. Lo asa shlichuso. If he didn't do exactly what he was supposed to be done, then shliach mal. Then the shliach is the one who was obligated in the Me'ilah. All right. So Gemara says v'chi asa shlichoso amai mal. V'chi asa shlichuso. So how's it go on?
And that seems to be implied.
Shliach shasa shlichuso balabais mal. Lo asa shlichuso shliach mal.
Sorry. Shaliach Ma'al, like you said, right? I think that's where it stops.
Right.
And then the question seems to be here, maybe it says he's just a shaliach. Why is the
owner?
No. But normally we said he wouldn't be, right? Is that it?
Okay.
Before we said if he did the shlichus, again, can I ask you what you said before? Is if he did the shlichus, the Baal HaBayit is the guilty one, right?
Right.
But does that imply, therefore, that the agent is also off the hook? I don't know. I mean,
okay, that's the case again. The Baal HaBayit had two sets of coins, and the Baal HaBayit confused the sets of coins. One was for Hektish and one was his money.
okay.
And he gave the Hektish money to the Shaliach and told him to go purchase something.
Right.
Okay? He says, go buy me a talis, go buy me a coat. So if the Shaliach did his shlichus, so the Baal Bayis is moal, okay? But who actually sinned? Who actually used the money? The Shaliach.
Maybe he didn't know.
The Shliach is the money. So that's what we're talking about. The Chiyasa Shlichuso Amai Moal. Why should the Shliach be considered Moal? V'chizeh Chotev V'zeh Mischayev. Who actually sinned? It was the Baal Bayis who flipped them. No, the other way around. And if the shliach does a shlichus, so who is more? The Baal Bayis is more. It was the shliach who sinned by actually purchasing something,
Right.
and the owner
Is the one who's responsible.
chayev. Right. In other words, it's not like stealing. You can't.
I don't know when you came in, did you hear the example?
Okay.
So maybe
So in other words, I'm the owner. I have money. I want to send you to buy me a suit. However, I mixed up my money with money that belonged to the Beis Hamikdash. So the money I gave you is the money that's the Beis Hamikdash money. Now, as long as nothing has happened to it, as long as you haven't purchased the suit, so you haven't stolen it from Hashem. You can't steal from Hashem. The only way you can steal from Hashem is if you misuse it, you appropriate it. So if the shliach does his shlichus, then I, the owner, if he gets me the suit, then I'm chayev. If, on the other hand, he didn't do a shlichus, he took the money and purchased something else, then he's on the hook. So the Gemara's question is, so if
he purchased something else? What's something else?
I don't know, he bought himself out and he went to buy a sandwich.
The shliach?
Yeah, the shliach.
For himself?
Yeah.
So he stole the other guy's money?
So then, well, that's a separate problem. It wasn't the other guy's money, right? But it's clearly he has no connection to the Baal Bayis. But if the Baal Bayis told him to go purchase it, so the Baal Bayis, so nothing really happens to the money until the shliach actually purchases the suit. It's not like a break and enter where when you take it out of the owner's possession, right? You've taken it out of the house, you've now appropriated it for yourself. You don't have to use that money that you stole and reallocate it. The very fact that you took it away from me out of my house means you've stolen my money. From Hashem, there's no stealing. So even if I take the money and I had this money from Hekdesh, but I didn't use it, it belongs to God because God is everywhere. So the Gemara says, so if the shliach then follows what he was commanded to do, and he buys the suit, why is the owner chayav? Now, this is shogeg, so he didn't know it. So the actual chet happens when the shliach purchases the suit, and therefore why should this person sin, the shliach, and the owner be chayav? So the Gemara says, this is what it means. This is the law that's based on a hair. It's very illogical. We don't know why, right? But it means it's a law that you would not normally expect to happen. So Gemara says, wait, Amar Ravo, my kushya, Dilma Shani Me'ila, the Alpha Chet Chet Mitruma. Maybe Me'ila follows a similar rule that happens with Truma, and that is that with Truma, if you misappropriate Truma, you also say shliach shlucho shladam kamoso, mahasam shlucho shladam kamoso, afkan shlucho shladam kamoso. So in other words, it's not unique about me'ilah stealing from Hashem. It's unique. It's going to be the same law in terms of truma. The law works for truma because we have chet in both the context of both examples. So for truma, the shliach would be obligated if he used or ate truma. Same thing. Baal Bayis has fruit that thought it's his, and he mixed it up with truma that should go to the Kohen. And who ate it? The shliach ate it, or he gives to the shliach to use it or sell it or whatever. So the shliach is chayav. So if that works for truma, it should work for meila as well. So that's not such a unique halacha for meila. So that's not really harari matli misara. So Gemara says, okay, we'll give you another example. El Lechadatanya. The same case. The Baal Bayis is got two sets of coins, and he switches them. But suddenly he realizes what he's done. So Nizkar Baal Bayis, Lo Nizkar Shaliach, the Baal Bayis realizes what happens, and the Shliach did not realize what happened. So the Baal Bayis is cut himself out of this, even though the Shliach can't recall the Shaliach. The shliach is too far away. Right. The Baal Bayis says, "Oh my goodness gracious, I don't want to do this. Stop! I'm not going to go. I don't want the code anymore." So shliach mal. So
the shliach goes and does it anyway, right?
Right. So shliach mal. So the Gemara says, shliach anaya, the poor shliach, Amaika Avid. Exactly. What did he do? He's just simply carrying out orders. The fact that the Baal Bayis remembered later, and he didn't tell the shliach, why should the shliach be obligated? So Gemara says, "Hainu karam atla misara." Okay, so that's the example that the second offer of what the example is about meila that is very different and difficult to find a source for it. So the Gemara says, once again, we don't like this. I'm Rav Ashi, my kusha. Dilma mida the havimotzi mos hektish lechulin. Okay, but the Gemara says no. Maybe it's like when you take money of hektish and you take it out of the Beis Hamikdash, then even if you take it b'shogeg and you didn't intend to do it, you're still going to be chayiv. So it's not important whether you knew it, you didn't know it, how it happened. You happen to take money out of the Beis Hamikdash that shouldn't go out of the Beis Hamikdash, regardless of what your intention was, you're going to be chayiv. So the case here where the shliach didn't know he was misacting, and the owner realized it, that's no different than any other cases that happen in similar situations. Motzi mos hektish lechulin. Okay, so Elav Rav Ashi lo nisracha el echidetnan. We have another case. It's going to be the harorim tluim b'sara. The case is as follows: Not al evan or korah shel hekdesh. You took a stone or you took a beam out of hekdesh. Okay, a beam in the Beis Hamikdash, you carry it out. Harei ze lo mo'al. So you haven't done me'ila yet. The fact that you took it out of the temple grounds, you haven't used it.
Okay.
You've removed it out of where you found it, but you haven't used it. I don't know what a big stone is, but you could understand a big beam. You'd want to build a house for it. You'll see in a moment what the stone is for. So, not no lechavero, hu mo'al, b'chavero lo mo'al. Okay? If he gives it to his friend, so his friend is now doing me'ilah. I mean, he's doing me'ilah, and his friend is not doing me'ilah.
Right.
So the moment he transfers ownership to someone else, so the Gemara says, "Michdeish mishkal shakla mali hu mali chavero." We don't understand the fact that he gave it to someone else, but he took it out of the Beis Hamikdash. It should be one way or the other. If he's chayav for taking, he should be chayav the moment he picked it up and took it out. The fact that he gave it to his friend, whatever his friend does with it, why does it suddenly become the moment of transgression? Mm-hmm. So the Gemara says, "Hainus kahararim atloyim masara." That's the unusual case where you have a mountain based upon a very thin basis, based upon a hair. So the Gemara says, "My kusha." Maybe the Gemara says, maybe it's really that Mishnah is a unique case. Dilma kishtir shmol de'amashmol hainu begizbar hamasuros lo avnei binyan askinan. Maybe the case that we're talking about, where the guy is taking out the korah from the Beis Hamikdash, is the treasurer who was responsible and allowed to move around objects. In other words, I come in and I pick up something out of the Beis Hamikdash and I take it out, right away that's Milah, it belongs in the Beis Hamikdash. So I took it away from the Beis Hamikdash, I'm Milah. But if I'm the gizbar, if I'm the treasurer who is responsible and I could take things home and I could move things around, when would I only become considered like I'm doing that I'm doing Milah? When it goes out of my rishus. When does it go out of my rishus? When I give it to someone else. Mm-hmm. So that's not such an unusual halacha. The gizbar himself had permission to take the objects out of the Beis Hamikdash proper. When it wasn't the Beis Hamikdash, fine. When I took it out of the Beis Hamikdash, it's also fine, because I'm the gizbar. When I gave it to someone else, then I've removed it from my ownership, my trust. That's become that, and that's what the Gemara says. Begizbar masuras lo'avnei binyan askin. On the chol hecha demancha bershusa didei mancha. Wherever he puts it down, it's in the reshus of the gizbar. Even if he takes it out of the Beis Hamikdash, he had permission to remove it from the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so that's not the good example. Ela meseif, but for the end of this Mishnah, which says as follows. Bana b'sof beiso hareze lomal achiyoder tachtel b'shava pruta. That if the even if the gizbar takes this stone and or this korah, this beam, and he builds it into his house,
right?
He's only going to be moel when he lives under it and gets benefit from it b'shava pruta.
Why? It's a change of use. That's what counts. It's not the.
I agree with you.
Right. So, but the moment he takes it out of the Beis Hamikdash,
doesn't have to.
No, but it says he builds it into his house, right? He makes it part of his house's property, right?
The house is worth more.
Okay, but he's not really using it
because he didn't move into the house yet, did he?
Right. Or he hasn't. In other words, wherever it is, it still belongs to Hashem.
Well,
no, but until he Actually, he'll do it, right?
Right.
As soon as he moves into the house.
He moves into it.
Sits inside the house.
Right.
But you wonder about the Sheva Pruta. That's a strange thing, right? Like you say.
Yeah, but also the Gemara says, "But mechdei shnuye shanye mali dar mali lo dar."
Ah, exactly.
Right.
That's what
The moment that he put it into the house and he changed it and he mortared it in. Right, and he set it in,
exactly.
so it should make it no difference whether he lives under it or not.
Exactly.
So the Gemara says, "Hainu kararim hatloim b'sara." Okay. So the Gemara says, "Mamai kusha." Maybe that's not such an unusual case. Dilma l'cherav, the Amar Rav, kigon shinicha agabe aruba. Maybe it's not he built it into the house. It's not what if you build it into the house. So I understand right away that you're chayav. He took the loose beam or the loose stone and he plugged a window. Now windows in those days did not have glass. Windows simply were whole. They had a wood and you took the wood out.
Okay.
So he takes the stone and he plugs up the hole. Or he takes the big beam and he plugs up the hole. And to live under it or to be under it, he's benefiting from it. He's keeping the elements out. He's keeping the rain out. He's keeping the sun out. So that's the case. This is not a case where he built it into the house. The moment he builds it into the house, he's made a change. The case is where he's done nothing to it except he threw it up on the roof and he covered this open window.
So what's the difference? It's still a use for his house.
But it's like a temporary.
So in other words, all he's saying, it's not such an unusual kind of case. Now I understand. We're trying to say that there's some kind of case in Me'ilah that is so unusual that even though you're chayav, you would not normally think that you're chayav.
I would think it's chayav.
Well, I would. So that's exactly in this case. You would think he's chayav. That's the question. We normally question that the moment before the Gemara said, "Well, if you put it into your house, you're not chayav. If you live under it, you are chayav." That's an unusual halacha. You should be chayav the moment you put it into your house.
Whether you live in it or not.
So the Gemara says, well, the case is where, you didn't build it into your house. You simply threw it up on your house.
So what's the difference?
So the moment that you put it on top of your house, the korah is still available to go back to the Beis Hamikdash. But the moment that you benefit from it, you've now benefited from hekdesh. So that's a regular case. The Gemara says that's not such a good case. So all of these cases are unusual, but they're not the deal breaker unusuals that you say this is kaharar matlur masara. Ella, the Gemara says, goes back to what it said before. Ella olam kidarava. Okay, Rabbi's case was niskar balabais lo niskar shliach mal. Right? The case of the balbais remembered and changed his mind. The shliach didn't, so shliach is moel. So the kashlach kashlach midar having motzi mos hektish l'chulin. So you'll say that that's not such an unusual case, because if you take money out and you take money of hektish and you use it for chulin, so that's also a case where you make a change. So Gemara says, "Hasa made the yad the gazuz the hekdesh, iboy liyune hachmiyada." But in that case, you knew there was money of hekdesh. You shouldn't have taken it out. In this case, you didn't even know there was money of hekdesh. The shaliach who got stuck, the poor shaliach who got stuck, he thought he's got regular clean money. He's got whole money. In this case, that's an unusual chiddush. If you knew that there was money that flipped and got mixed up and so forth, that's one thing. But in the case we're talking about here, the shaliach didn't even understand he was carrying the wrong money. The balabais understood. He got himself off the hook. The shaliach still carried. So miyada. So haynu karar matler masara. Okay, a little bit of a complicated gemara, but it comes back at the end. This is the one case that is an unusual case about Me'ilah that we would not think that it would normally be such like that, because the shliach looks like he really gets stuck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, the end of the Mishnah said after Chagiga Me'ilah, it said there are a number of things. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hataras, that's what it said. No, Mu'at, Mikra Mu'at, Halach Meruah. Then it says Adinim Avodos, Vataharas, Vatumos. I don't know.
So I'm sorry. So the Mishnah, the end of the line of the Mishnah, which talked about Haram Atler Masara, said Shein Mikra Mu'at, Falachos Merubos. That's the line the Mishnah goes on. Okay, why is it called? There's not that many psukim, and there's a lot of halachas. And halachas don't seem to connect to the logical parts of psukim. So the Gemara says, in commenting on this, there was a brisa that added to this as well. Tana, negayim v'ohalos, mikramud v'halachas merubos. This is not about haram and tlan basara, but simply examples of where there's a little bit of Torah and a lot of halachas. What's in another example, says the brisa? The halachas of the negayim negatzaras, and the halachas of tumas ohalos. There's a few psukim, and there's a lot of halachos. There are a lot of mishnayos in ohalos. So the Gemara says, negayim mikra muat, negayim mikra muat. Negayim mikra meruba. There's a lot of psukim on negatzaras. Tazriya mitzora. Two parshios. It's chock full of this. Ella sa'amar papara haki kamar. Negayim. Here's what the brisa should have really said. Negayim mikra meruba v'alachas muatos. Olos mikra muat v'alachas merubos. Not that they're both mikra muat and halachas merubos. One has got a lot of mikra. One has got a lot of halachos. Okay. So the Gemara says, who cares? Okay. Umay nafkamina. What difference does it make if there's a lot of psukim or a lot of mishnayos? Umay nafkamina. So the Gemara says the only nafkamina is where would you look to find a solution? Imestapkalach milsa b'negayim. If you had a question in the Negayim and you wanted to find out what the law is, ayin b'kroy. Go read Tazriya Mitzorah. You'll learn all the laws about Negayim. V'imestapinalach milsa ba'olos. You want to find a halacha about olos? Ayin b'masnisin. Go read the mishnayos. Okay. There's many, the Masechet Olos is a very long Masechet. A lot of Mishnayos, a lot of difficult Mishnayos because we don't study the halachas of Tumah. Okay? So, simply just telling us that it's only important, you can figure it out yourself, there's a lot of halachas, a lot of psukim, just telling us if you want to look something up, where should you start? With Olos, you're not going to find a lot of Torah, so go right to the Mishnayos. With Negayim, you can start with the Sefer Torah, with the psukim in the Torah. Okay? And then the Mishnah continued. Okay, this goes back to our Mishnah. After listing the Haram Klemasara, there's a Dinim, Avodos, Taharos, Tmeos, Arayos. There's Dinim, Avodos, Taharos, Tmeos, Arayos, of incest. Yeshlam al Misri Yismachu, they have there are bases that they have to be based on. And there's some origin for them.
When it says they're Gufei Torah, we said we mean these are like central.
Well, the Hein Gufei Torah, well, it means this and everything in the Mishnah is going to be key parts of the Torah. Don't say the fact that they're unusual; they're out of the Torah. So the point of it being, all these items mentioned here looks like they're exceptional cases. So when it lists the first few, like Het and Nadarim, said Parchim Ba'avir, or said Chagiga is like hanging by a thread. And these items, it looks like they don't really have a lot to hang on, but they do have a Yesh Lam Mashi Yismechur. It means there is something to rely upon, but it's not a lot. So Gemara says, what do you mean dinim? The laws of interpersonal relations, of setting up a society. Michtav Tivan. There's plenty of halachas. Parshas Mishpatim, Parshas Shoftim is chock full of all these halachas. Lo nisracha el echad Rabbi. We need for the following halacha. Rabbi, the Tanya. Rabbi Omer nefesh tachas nefesh mamon. Okay. So when the Torah says lex talionis, life for life, it means money. So it's maybe it really means killing a person. It says in terms of it says nefesh tachas nefesh, and it says when a person strikes a woman and she miscarries, right? So it says v'nasan b'flilim. It's going to pay plilim. So it doesn't mean that he gets killed. So you see, but it's ish has v'nasan. V'nasan b'flilim is clearly means he's going to pay for the damages. So the one, if one means you pay money, what the worth of the expectant fetus was. So the same thing is when nefesh was nasata nefesh tachas nefesh doesn't mean that you kill a person. You give the equivalent value of what an individual would have been worth. Okay.
What's the translation of B'flilim?
B'flilim?
I mean, it doesn't mean money, does it?
I don't think so.
So how do they jump to money?
I don't know, we'll see. Plili today in Israel, modern thing means criminal, really. But, That's the criminal law.
Okay.
Is that what it says in the pasuk as well?
Yeah, that's where he.
I'm trying to remember.
Here we go.
It says.
When the son, as the judges determine.
As the
He shall be punished according to the woman's husband shall lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine.
So clearly it means money. Yishalem, it says.
It's a funny expression
To the him.
It is.
to say Mishalim. What do you have to say?
Well, okay.
No, you're right.
You're right. But it clearly does not mean to be killed.
Must have been an origin.
Right, but Asam B'Filim does not mean to be. That would be a much different expression.
Well, what did he do? He hurt the baby. Is that what happened?
He killed the baby.
She
miscarried.
He killed the baby.
There were two people fighting,
So he
and
killed by accident. So why should you kill him? I mean, he didn't kill somebody. He didn't murder
We
somebody.
agree.
okay, well, that's eye for an
He took a
eye,
life. He killed
eye
a
for an
life.
eye, hand for a hand. I mean, there are societies that interpret this very literally.
Well, we have a precedent that you have the Ira Miklat, the guy kills by accident.
Right.
So
Right.
right away you know that you don't kill a guy by
Okay.
accident.
Well, yes, but maybe there are some unique cases, circumstances how that happens. But nefesh, if we look, it comes up in a number of places. Nefesh b'nefesh, ayin b'ayin,
Yeah, I know.
shein b'shein, right?
Yeah.
Nefesh b'nefesh looks like it should mean, right? Eye for an eye,
Yeah.
life for life.
Is there another drasha based on the word tachas?
Maybe.
I remember seeing somewhere that the tachas is an allusion to monetary compensation.
Okay, could be. Probably in Sanhedrin.
Plus, I'd say the other thing, like felony murder. So, in other words, the kind of Ir Miklat is a pure accident, right? You're chopping wood or things like
Yeah.
that.
So is this?
Here you're saying
He was
you're
fighting. He was fighting.
He was
So, but you could say that fighting itself was an offense, maybe, right? And this
He
happened
was
in the
defending
course.
himself. They didn't get attacked.
Why? Maybe the other guy. Maybe.
Well, whatever. I'm saying, but that's exactly the point of this case about fighting with the man, and the woman interferes and she loses the baby. It's clearly a case, and the Torah underscores it's not going to be a physical death. It's going to be some kind of monetary compensation. So the tricky part here is saying that v'nasata is a comparison. One sheds light on the other. It says v'nasan. What's the pasuk? Kasher yishud Allah b'alishav v'natan b'flilim. And then it says a few psukim later, v'nasata nefesh tachas nefesh. So v'nasan, give. If one giving is giving money, the second giving is giving money.
So does it say
That's the tricky part. To say
the next one, because in the first case, it doesn't say that the woman lost a nefesh. I don't think, right? It just says, I forget what the word is, lo kara son, something like that. No, like what's the case of a woman fighting? I don't think it used the word nefesh there. Maybe.
So it is. It's with the same case. The whole story.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, two men are fighting, hurt a woman. No one gets hurt except the woman loses the child.
Right.
Okay, so the punishment is like the judges are going to judge. But if someone's going to get hurt, there's some harm. Okay? Ayin tachat ayin, shein tachat shein, yod tachat yod, rega tachat royal, gel tachiyot tachat v'yah, petza tachat spotza, chabura tachat chabura. So you could have said that in all these examples of the two men are fighting, and someone gets hurt, the husband, the wife, there's actually physical harm. You've got to hurt the perpetrator the same way. So if he knocks out an eye, you knock out his eye. If you knock off a hand, you knock off a hand, etc., etc.
Why wouldn't you say that?
So because the first v'nasan, the previous pasuk says v'nasan b'flilim. That is referring to the judges putting up a monetary.
Agreed, but that's where she lost the child. It said very clearly.
Correct, but in the next case is not only about losing a life; it's also about losing an eye.
Yeah.
So you could say, you knocked an eye out. You're going to knock it. You caused the wound. We're going to wound you.
Right.
You knocked out a tooth.
Yeah.
Right? Someone got burnt. You got to get burnt.
Yeah, you could say that.
So the Gemara says, no, it's not true because we're making this comparison, this hekesh of v'natan and v'natata. So that's the shaky part of this drush here. Because the fact that the word nasan comes up, it comes up in a million places in the Torah. Right?
And it says, "V'natata nefesh tachat nefesh." That's what it says.
Yes, v'natata nefesh tachat nefesh, ayin tachat ayin, shem tachat shem, yod tachat yod, regel
And
tachat
with the
regel.
Pulin, it also says natan.
And said v'natan. So therefore, if the first v'natan means money, because no one got hurt, because we don't view a fetus as real life.
Right.
So the next v'natan, which refers to life and eye and tooth and
natan.
moving, that's also got to be monetary.
We don't have it.
Okay.
Natan.
We do have a natan here.
No, I'm saying where is the natan?
Nemra netina lamata, but nemra netina lamala.
Nitna. I see.
Netina.
I got you. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Mala halal mala
I got it.
So that kind of law, which we all take for granted and assume to be so, is an unusual law in terms of basis of Scripture, because Scripture seems to say the other way around.
Absolutely.
So this is an example of yesh lamamashi shismechu. This law that we don't say lex talionis has a basis for it. What's the basis? V'natata v'natan. Is it a clear basis? No. It's not black and white. It's a drash. It's the Torah Sheba'al Peh. But it goes back to some basis in the Torah, as opposed to some other things that may have no basis whatsoever. So this is even more. This is more than simply hanging by a thread, an unusual case. This is a regular case. So that's why all these examples are put together. All right, now. The next thing we said, so the list was dinim, avodos. Next avodos is doing the avoda. Now, avoda, the Beis Hamikdash, there's oodles of psukim. Whole Vayikra, not a whole Vayikra, tons of Vayikra is about that. So the Gemara says avodos, michtav ksivin. Okay, there's plenty of psukim. Lo nishrucha elo halacha tadam. Okay, so there's a special halacha that the blood, when the animal was killed, the blood has to be sprinkled on the altar. You just don't sprinkle it; it has to be received into a clay shoret, into a utensil, right? And then the utensil is taken and they dash and they throw it onto the altar. Sounds pretty bloody, but that's what it was. So that is a part of the avodah. Where does it really say that? It doesn't say that. Halacha d'adam means you have to put the blood into a utensil and the utensil is taken over to the altar. Okay, that's not clear. So the Gemara says, "Lo tznisrucha halacha d'adam l'tanya ve'grivo," maybe say grivo zu kabbalah t'adam. The afkarachmana b'lashon halacha. The Torah took it away from the word halacha. The chsiv ve'griv hakohen es hakol viktir hamizbecha. So it doesn't call it halacha; it calls it hikrivo and v'yamar mar, and we learned on this zu halachat evarim lekevesh. When it says the Kohen's going to bring everything on the altar, it means you had to take the different limbs and you had to put them on the ramp of the altar. Lemeimra the halacha lo tafka mechlal kabbalah. So the word halacha is really considered part of Kabbalah. Halacha and Kabbalah and kakrivo and hiktiro is all intertwined words. So halacha d'adam is included in saying the hikrivo, that they're going to sacrifice this animal with the blood. That includes halacha d'adam. So it's included in the whole conclusion here. That's not so clear that there's a mitzvah, there's an obligation of Kabbalah d'adam. Okay. So it looks like because it looks like you're shechting the animal and you're bringing the animal on the altar. What is bringing the dam? And the dam has to be included into a utensil. That is mashiyisnechu, but it's not black and white. Okay, the next example, taharos. So the Gemara says taharos michtav ksiv. There's a lot of halachas about tahara. They're not all put in one place in the Torah. Halachas about tahara when they fight Midian. Halachas of tahara going to the Beis Hamikdash. So what's the case where we don't really have black and white? Lo nishrucha l'shir mikvah lo ksiva. So it refers to how big or how small the mikvah needs to be, which we don't have. The Tanya says rachatz b'mayim v'toher b'mei mikvah. It says rachatz b'mayim is called b'saro. So rachatz b'mayim means b'mei mikvah. It called b'saro. Mayim shekol gufo ole bohen. When it says you're going to wash in the water all of yourself, all of your body, so that means it's water that has to cover all of your body. Right? You could think you're doing a hand scrub, right, piece by piece. It says, nope, not true. The kama hein, and how much is that going to be? Amma al amma barum shlosha amot. 1 amma by 1 amma, that's 3 amot deep, right? B'shiro chachamim a mikvah arbaim saw. The chachamim decided that a mikvah's got to be 40 saw. Okay. Some of the Rishonim say that mikvah is supposed to be round. You see, it's meant to. The whole shear was meant to encompass a person. So it's not a square mikvah.
But here, even
right, so 1 amma by 1 amma.
That's awfully small. No?
Yeah, it is very small.
I mean, it sounds
sure it's very small.
So it's more like a bore, kind of like a.
Yeah, it's very small.
A pit.
Well, it's less than 40 saw.
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't that be less than 40 saw?
Well, how big is 40 saw? I don't know, 190 gallons? It's actually not very big.
Amma by an amma and 3 almas deep.
Well, look, here is, let's say this is 30 inches. Maybe it's 28. Let's say 30 inches. So an amma is, how much is an amma?
18 inches.
Right. So this is about 2 amos. Well, let's say maybe an amma is 20 inches. Okay? So 20 inches times 3 amos is 50, 60 inches. How tall is a human being?
Usually a bit taller.
Usually taller. Back in those days, they probably were shorter.
Shorter.
Okay?
Because you wouldn't have room to crouch, basically.
Right.
Well, you might.
1 amma, right? 1 amma by 1 amma is.
Bend your knees.
1 amma by 1 amma, probably this is about 1 amma.
Yeah, well,
well,
maybe a little bit more, but.
Yeah. If you think of 4 amos was your hand.
Yeah.
1 amma to here, 1 amma to here, 1 amma to here, 1 amma to here is 4 amos.
Yeah.
When I talk about 4 amos being like carrying, it's because it's your private rishus.
Right.
So, while 1 amos from here to here, it's really also from here to here. So 1 amma by 1 amma is probably about as round as you can get for a person. Now, it is small. There was once a rabbi in New York City many years ago. It's probably the early 20th century. His name was Miller. He wrote a book called Secret of Happiness. This is in the days where Jews came right off the boat and gave up everything in many cases. And he talked about the idea of mikvah. And there were not that many mikvahs around. So if you lived in the Lower East Side, you probably had. If you lived outside, it was very difficult. So he came up with all kinds. The book is all about diagrams about how to make your own mikvah. It's a lot of kulos that are used to make a mikvah because it's got to be attached to the ground, and whether you can use metal pipes, it's a whole machlokas. But he had all kinds of, so half the book is about the importance of mikvah, the beauty of mikvah, the significance of mikvah, and the other half of the book are these black and white drawings.
Build yourself a
mikvah in your own house, and how to disguise it. Like people wouldn't even know that you have a mikvah. Remember, people are living in tenement buildings. They're not living in great large mansions. And
we hear these stories from the Soviet Union.
Correct.
Where they build their secret mikvahs in the basement and things like this.
So these weren't people who had basements.
Yeah. No, we understand.
That's what I'm trying to say. Great. So, but I'm sorry.
The mikvahs are not small.
So our mikvahs are not meant to be the minimum size. Correct. Our mikvahs are meant that you can go in. You don't have to be squeezed up. They're asking how much is the smallest amount that it's like saying how small can the smallest shofar be?
But the 40 saw is a minimum, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not
the maximum.
Correct, but there's
40 saws. Anybody know?
I believe it's 190 gallons. So I don't know.
You must have a saw.
I don't think you're going to find it on Google. I don't know.
It must be there. You will. Google has some amazing things.
I don't know.
Look up a saw.
Siri knows the answer.
Siri, yeah. That's what my grandchildren tell me. You say, ask Siri.
How big is 40 saw?
No, even one saw.
How big is 47? I need some of the Canadian accent.
S-A-A-H. Put in S-A-H under Google. Probably won't have anything like that. Probably it's an Arabic one. I'll tell you.
Okay.
I don't want to spell it. S.
Not happy with it?
S-A-H.
A-H, yes. That's what I would suggest. S-A-A-H. Even S-A apostrophe A-H maybe.
Requirements of mikvah.
Mikvah.org.
Mikvah, there you go.
Let's see. 575 liters.
That's what it says?
According to the Chazon Ish. How much is that?
I don't know. Well, it depends if you're going by American gallons or Canadian gallons.
So a liter, so that's much more than what I said.
It's a cubic.
A mikveh has to contain approximately 575 liters.
So I'm saying, here a liter is like 3 point, let's say 5 to a gallon, right? To an American license to consider.
10 centimeters.
To an American gallon, let's say. If you divide 375 by 3.5,
so
whatever you get, like 100 and something gallons.
Okay.
Over 100 gallons.
I don't know. Chazon Ish Shiurim are big. So
we're all going to have to do some research on this, clearly.
But basically, it's meant to be the smallest thing that you can cover.
Well, I think you have to cover completely. So, but again, there's really no.
Think of Think of it as a bathtub.
Right.
No, I can't. That's what I'm saying. The problem is.
Why think of it as a bathtub? I'm sorry.
A bathtub would be too small.
A bathtub is too long. No, I'm saying a bathtub is much
I don't know. If anyone takes a bath, you can theoretically put enough water in the bathtub to be under the water.
No. But this long. A bathtub is long. Here.
Okay, right. So squeeze it the other way. Make it tall.
Yeah. I'm saying. So you have to. So then the depth becomes critical, like you said. If you're going to get because I don't think could you bend your knees to crouch down to get it over your head? I'm not sure you could.
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
all I can say is Chazal obviously did some calculations, and they felt this was what
like
it was.
Said, they didn't
give it in liters, and they didn't give they gave it in size. This 40 saw is based on the size of an average person. An average person could immerse in. Okay.
Most of these were but they were short. Clearly.
I don't think the shortfish was that short.
It was whatever it was. It's probably the average person. It wasn't the basketball players.
Because you have in
we had women
sukkah, we talked about the round sukkah and the size of the perimeter, and they said, well, each person takes up an amma, right?
Correct.
So 18 inches, which is, you think
you're right. Like I say, it's
on the size of a seat on the subway or something. That's 20 or 21 inches.
Is it? Well, there you go.
Which is approximately.
Well, you could get in, I think. You could get in.
If you look at the old mikvos, if you look at the mikvos,
trying to picture.
You look at the mikvos in Mitzada, or the mikvos as on the southwest wall, the southern wall, where's how people used to go to Beis Mikdash, and they've uncovered some. Some look actually very small. And they're here in a rock.
They're not 60 saw?
They are 40 saw. I'm saying, but they're much smaller than the mikveh that you're normally used to seeing.
They are 40 saw, though.
Yeah, I'm sure they're 40 saw.
So if you make it exactly like this, then you go in, you're going to displace the water.
That's true. That's correct. That's right. That's exactly right. Two people, exactly 40 saw, and the two people. The first person is Yotze, the second person is not, because the water went out with her.
One at a time.
Right. Okay.
Good thinking.
So let's make it work.
So you have to make it correct. 41 saw.
That was 41.
Well, we replace it. So the rule is, if you have 40 saw, you can add additional waters to it. Right.
When you carry the water in.
You can add additional, which is what we do, by the way, today. You can add additional city tap water. Right? But the original 40 saw has to be rainwater, ice water, whatever it is. Okay. All right. Where we up to? So the shir of mikveh is not really found anywhere, and shir chachamim may mikveh arbaim saw. So that's the halacha of taharos that we don't really. That has a basis for it, because it talks about the pasuk says rachatz b'mayim is called b'saro, and we interpret that to mean that all of the body has to be rachatz at one time.
Called b'saro.
Correct. Well, you could think it means I wash here, I wash there, I wash there, right? In fact, the common nomenclature in the Torah of going to the mikvah is about, sometimes says v'taval, but for example at Har Sinai it says rachatzu.
Absolutely.
Right? It doesn't say, and it means mikvah.
Well, rachatzu is usually you're implying they're dirty. You got to wash. Right?
Well, rachatzu usually means you're washing your body, not you're immersing it.
With those three angels when they came or four, whatever they came.
They washed their hands and feet. Right. The same Torah, when it talks about Yom Kippur, says, right, v'taval b'mayim.
Yeah.
Okay, it does say tefillah in Bamidbar. In a lot of other places it does not. Okay. Now, Then we say, so that's taharos. Then we say tmeos. Tmeos also is one of these things that has yishlam and mashismechu, michtav ksibin. So Gemara says, yeah, but it says tons of places about tmeos. Lo nishrecha ela kadasha min asheretz. The lo ksiva. That the smallest amount of part of a sheretz tame that will make you tame is going to be the size of an adasha, which is a
bean.
A bean.
A bean.
Yeah, it's a lentil. A lentil.
Right, yeah.
Lentil. Yes, right. Okay, below ksiv. The Tanya, how do you know that it's this small, right? It says Bahem, I guess this is somewhere by Yikra, Yachal B'kulam Talmud Lomer Mehem. Okay? Kol HaNogeh Bahem, says Kol Asher Yipol Alav Mehem B'mosam Yitmal. So one place says Bahem, one place says Mehem. So when it says Bahem, you think it means you got to be the entire sheretz. Right? Talmud Lomer Mehem, from them. So Yachal b'miksasa, maybe only part of them.
Right.
Talmud Lomer Bahem. So, but it says again Bahem. So Haketan Achiagia b'miksasa shukulo. It's got to be some of the sheretz, which is at least as large as the smallest sheretz, whole sheretz that there is. So Drash is like this: a partial sheretz that's tameh will make you tameh, as long as it's as large as the minutest sheretz that exists. Okay? And what was the minutest sheretz that existed? And the Gemara says, Meshiru kachavim kishkadasa, which is a small, like lentil, sheken chomet, tchilasa bechadasha. The chomet, which is one of the shvatzim that's mentioned in Parshas Shmini, okay? I'm not sure what the chomet is, but when it begins its life, it's as small as nadasha.
I think later a chomet was, which is much bigger, of course. One of those that's supposed to be able to take any color. No, I thought
chameleon.
It was chameleon.
But the beginning of this as a child, as a youngster, as a viable,
could very well.
Like, I don't know,
and I'm not sure chomet.
Okay, so the marsupials, for example, the kangaroos and the other marsupials, when they carry these young, the young are tiny.
They are really tiny.
Extremely small.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely, because they're really not totally.
But we're talking about like the size of a hand, smaller than a hand.
Smaller,
like this.
Maybe the size of your finger. No, they're little. They're like small as your little finger.
Right.
Oh, no,
so that's I guess the same kind of comparison. Whatever this chomet is, the first chomet that walks around, right, is going to be this size.
Nice.
I don't know what that means. Okay. And the Gemara says, well, there's something else that could be that size as well. So Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Mar Kizanav Halta'a. Halta'a is some kind of lizard, and if the tail is lost to the lizard will regrow another tail, but the tail itself will flap around for a while just by the autonomic nervous reactions of the separated tail. So therefore, Chazal felt this was like a separate creature, at least on its own. It's not really true. It's not a separate creature, just a limb that the nervous reaction is still going around. But the end of the tail was, I guess, the smallest amount of tail that could pop around like this was the size of a lentil bean. Okay, and that's a sheretz. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you see that the smallest amount of an independent sheretz was either a dasha, or the smallest sheretz that lived, the chomet, the baby chomet, was the size of an adasha. Ergo, you have to, in order to become tameh, you have to come in contact with the amount of sheretz that is the size of the smallest independent structured sheretz in the world. Okay. All right. Now the last one I think was arayos. So Gemara says michtav ksiva. It's written in the Torah. There's plenty of psukim about arayos. The Gemara says lo nishracha elabito me anusaso. Okay, this one of the prohibited relations is the daughter of a woman who he rapes, the lo ksiva, which is not listed. Okay.
What's that? Isn't it? Let's say it's not the daughter of a woman he rapes. Let's say
an incestuous, but it's got an incestuous.
The daughter of any woman that he rapes. Is that the same thing?
No, but that's not a riot. No, it's hey, rape is a different story.
Okay.
In other words, as opposed to normally his own daughter is included, right?
Right.
But this is, while genetically it's his, it's not considered really his daughter. Okay. So
what about the sister? You can't marry.
The sister is listed.
No, you can't have two. You can't marry two sisters.
I believe it's listed.
Oh, I see. What's not?
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Isha Machosa. So there's a whole bunch of. We're looking for something that's not directly listed black and white, and to say that there is still a basis for it. Okay. Now, how do you know it? The Amrava Amali Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abdimi Asya Heina Asya Zima Zima. Okay, so Sharahema, Zimahi. So there's a comparison between, I think, Bas Kohen, where these words come up in different kinds of, in the same kind of context, to extend this to that, I guess the daughter of his Anusa is considered his daughter.
But you wonder why somebody wouldn't say Pshita almost, because it's his biological daughter, for God's sake.
Right, okay. Right, okay.
Talking about, legitimate relationships.
Yeah.
I understand.
You think back, the common law until a few years ago, and when I studied law at university, if he wasn't a legitimate child, then he wasn't
a child. I agree, but as far
the
as
purpose of inheritance.
No question about it.
It wasn't your child unless he was a legitimate.
Absolutely.
Right. Today with DNA analysis, it's interesting how halacha sometimes accepts it, sometimes doesn't accept it. It comes up, different posts can look at it different ways.
Yeah.
All right, and then finally, the last line of this Mishnah here says, Hein, the last words, Hein, Gufei Torah. So Gemara says, what do you mean, Hein? These are Gufei Torah. Hani in, Hanach lo, these are Gufei Torah. The rest of the Torah is not? What does that mean? This is it. The rest is like, chopped liver. Elaema, Hein ve'Hein Gufei Torah. Okay? The ones that we listed, the ones that are not listed, they're all Gufei Torah, Elu ve'Elu. Right? So no, it's not like we lost the vav. It means this, it means it's just for emphasis, so to speak. Okay, and therefore it's referring to everything, including these items, which look like they're so unusual and may or may not have a clear scriptural basis. Nonetheless, they're part of the Gufei Torah. Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay. Start the next Mishnah. Welcome to the next parak. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So next parak is a long piece of Agadah at the beginning. Here we go. Ein darshim ba'arayos b'shlosha. So this actually comes up, I think, in Pirkei Avos, right? I think, or maybe Maseh Bereshis Pirkei Avos. Okay. So it says one should not study about arayos in three people together. Okay.
What do you mean? Not three people or more can't study it?
It means only three people.
Only three people.
I think it means only three people. Okay. And the Gemara has a whole discussion what this means. The Gemara says it refers to certain arayos that are not clear from the Torah that they're prohibited. There's nothing wrong with learning the Parsha in the end of Sefer Parshas Kedoshim or Achrei that talks about this. But for example, Bito Me'anu Saso is an example. It's not clear black and white, which the Medrash tells us that this and some others are included as prohibited relationships.
So, but this question here,
okay, now what's the problem with learning with three?
No, but again, just so I understand, it means you can't learn with three, but you could learn with two or with five, but
means
not only three, or
no, only with two, and not with three, and not with more than three.
Not with more than three.
Right.
Okay.
Great. So in other words, a rabbi, a teacher, a teacher with three students.
That's prohibited.
That's prohibited. A teacher with two students is permitted. Okay? Now, the Gemara says, where arayos, because it was always the hallmark of the Jewish people, and there was concern about people transgressing, and if it's not clear, people are concerned that they may not understand things as well as they should. You can misunderstand everything, but arayos somehow is put like on a higher pedestal. Okay. And maybe because there's urges and sexuality, and or just people inevitably don't know these halachas. So the concern was if you have two people, let's say you have two people, So
a teacher and two.
Teacher and two. So what can happen? Maybe the teacher will engage in discussion with one student, but the other student will listen in, because the other student's got nobody else to talk to. If you have 3 students, so the teacher's talking to one, the other 2 become talking amongst themselves, right? And when that happens, they are not paying careful attention. When that happens, they miss out on the law about these arayos. Right. And because arayos was considered so complicated if it's not mentioned in the Torah, and some of the relationships are, and second of all, because it was very serious, right? Because it believed mamzeris and everything, and other things, right? So therefore, this was the one thing was considered high tension. Right, high tension wires, high voltage, that you have to make sure that you learn it in a small enough setting that you can transmit these laws properly. It applies to everything, but this especially. Right, and this goes back to some extent to what we learned earlier in the Mishnah, Muvas lo yuchal liskon. Right, that which is crooked can't be upended. It goes back to a mamzer. You can do tshuva for everything else. Mamzer, you can't change the status of mamzer.
So how does the 3 help? I don't know. I missed that.
No, 3 doesn't help.
Can't help.
You said you can't. You said you should only study with 3.
No, only with up to less than 3.
Only 2.
1 to 2 or 1 to 1. So 1 to 2 is here's the teacher, here the 2. If the student is asking a question, the other student will have to listen. There's nothing else to do, right? If there are 3, if one student is asking a question, these 2 will talk amongst themselves and lose interest in the lesson. Okay.
So 4 is the same.
4, 5, 6, correct, right. So specifically about which, not just laws of arayos, but the laws of what the Gemara will call sisrei arayos, the hidden types of laws about arayos. These are not deep, mysterious secrets of Kabbalah. It means the laws of arayos that are not clearly black and white in the Torah.
So does this also mean that any other subject you should study with 3? Let's say Shabbos.
Yeah, but Chazal were extremely concerned about arayos. People wouldn't transgress this. Because if it leads to a mamzer, if it leads to an improper relationship and an improper offspring, you're stuck. If you broke Shabbos, you fix it for next Shabbos. No, I'm saying.
They took sex very seriously.
They did. They actually did. And they understood the drives as well.
But is there also not an idea that there are some things you just don't discuss in public?
I'm with you.
It's something that's dealt with in a very discreet manner because of the
perhaps
nature. I agree.
But you know what? You look at the Masechtas and how it goes. Masechtas Kedushin and Ksuvos and all these things. Sexuality comes up in many places.
Yeah, but maybe he was worried that a group of people will joke, whatever. They'll treat it in a different kind of way than other halachas, let's say, in that sense. So maybe you should have a small...
Just like we had in Daf Yomi a few days ago, talks about, it's Masechet Gittin, it's talking about Amar Vriya. Talks about cases where people used to have relations with certain slave women.
Sure.
And so even though they're not supposed to really release them, the Chazal released them and so forth, how they took care of them. They were well aware of what goes on. And the halachas and so forth, there's no bantering around, there's no like hiding this kind of stuff. So I don't think this is like it's X-rated material. I think it's more to say that there was a concern. At least that's how the Gemara understands. It's more concerned how it would be misinterpreted, misunderstood, and this is so important. Okay, so that's kind of stands by itself. And then the Gemara says, "The lo ma'aseh bereishis b'shnayim." Okay, so even 2 people alone, one teacher to 2 people, you can't teach about the creation story or the creation of the world, what it really means. So, and the Gemara will bring a pasuk. It says, "Ki sha'alna liyamim rishonim asher yilefanecha min hayom asher yibasta alagai." You'll ask about the previous days. The Gemara says, "Ki sha'alna." When you will ask, one person will ask. That's fine. 2 people can't ask. Okay. Now that's not about misinterpreting. That is about misinterpreting, but in a spiritual, mystical kind of way. Okay. V'lo b'merkava. We'll just do this. V'lo b'merkava b'yachid. And when you're dealing with the Ma'aseh Merkava, so even one-on-one you can't do, right? El and Kain hayay chacham umevin midaito. Unless the person that you're teaching is a person who is really of the level to be able to understand the different ramazim in Ma'aseh Bereishis and Ma'aseh Merkava. Now, what exactly these things mean? So Rambam says Ma'aseh Bereishis is actually Rambam uses the term Chokma Tivis V'Hamaka Baskalos HaMetzios, the actual beginning of matter, and Ma'aseh Merkava is Chokma Lokis, Metzios Habore V'Tarav, defining basically what we call to be Kabbalah. Okay, so and so forth and so on, and then Mishnah will enumerate others about things as well, but we have to be careful not to go into too far depth. Okay, so that'll be opening for the next period. Okay.